Hello everyone and welcome. Today I will share a gentle, emotional, and romantic story written especially for intermediate English learners. So sit back, relax, and let your imagination travel with me. Now let us begin. Elena lived in the quiet coastal town of Willow Cove, a place where the sea whispered softly against the rocks and the mornings smelled of fresh bread from the small bakery on the corner. She was 33 years old and worked as a photographer, capturing the simple beauty of the world around her. People in town knew her as gentle, calm, and always carrying her camera like an extra part of her heart. Even though her life was peaceful, something inside her still felt empty, like a room waiting for someone to enter. One cool autumn afternoon, Elena stepped into the old bookstore near the harbor. The bell above the door chimed softly, and she brushed sand from her coat as she walked between the shelves. She loved this place. The smell of old paper, the quiet classical music playing in the background, the dusty sunlight falling through the window. She was reaching for a poetry book when she froze. A familiar figure stood in the next aisle, tall and thoughtful, flipping through pages with the same slow care she remembered. It was Adrian, her first love, the man she had not seen in 12 years. He turned at the sound of her footsteps, and their eyes met. For a moment the room seemed to hold its breath. "Elena," he said softly, as if saying her name might break something delicate. She nodded slowly, her heart suddenly beating too fast. "Adrian, I didn't know you were back." He closed the book gently, his expression mixed with surprise and something deeper, almost regret. "I just arrived today. I didn't think I would see you this soon." They walked out of the bookstore together, unsure but drawn toward each other by old memories. At the harbor, the sky turned orange and pink, painting the water with warm colors. They sat on a wooden bench, watching fishing boats return for the evening. Adrian told her that he had lived many years in the city, working as an architect. His life had been loud, busy, and full of deadlines. He had traveled a lot and achieved many things, but something had always felt missing. "I think I was running from myself," he admitted softly. "And maybe from you." Elena felt a small ache inside. 12 years ago, they had been young, dreaming of a future together. But when Adrian had left for a big job opportunity, everything changed. He had left quickly, leaving behind a short letter she didn't read until it was too late. She still remembered the night she found it, but she had been too hurt to open it then. Now, sitting beside him again, she wondered what that letter had said and why she had kept it hidden for so long. That evening, after Adrian walked her home, Elena opened her old wooden box and found the letter. For years she had avoided it, afraid of what it might say. With trembling hands, she finally unfolded the paper. The handwriting was familiar, filled with emotion. "Elena, I'm leaving because I'm scared. I love you deeply, maybe too much. But if life brings me back to you, I hope you can forgive me." She read the words again, and again as tears welled in her eyes. The letter made her heart feel heavy and light at the same time. Part of her wanted to close that chapter forever, but another part felt something awaken, a memory of love that had never completely disappeared. The next day, Adrian asked if she wanted to walk with him to the lighthouse, the tall white tower that stood on the hill overlooking the sea. She hesitated, unsure if she was ready to revisit the past, but something inside her whispered to go. They walked along the winding path together, feeling the cool wind and listening to the distant sound of waves. Inside the lighthouse, their footsteps echoed softly as they climbed to the top. When they reached the balcony, the ocean stretched endlessly before them. Adrian rested his hands on the railing and took a breath. "I need to tell you something," he said. "I left because I was afraid of how much I cared for you. I thought I would lose my freedom or my future. Instead, I lost the best thing that ever happened to me." His voice broke slightly, and Elena felt her heart tighten. "You hurt me," she whispered. "I waited for you. I believed in us. And you disappeared." "I know," he said, his voice low. "And I've regretted it every day. I didn't come back to expect anything. I came back to say I'm sorry and to accept whatever you decide." His honesty touched her deeply. He didn't try to convince her or promise things he couldn't guarantee. He simply stood beside her, open and vulnerable, letting her see his truth. Before Elena could respond, dark clouds gathered over the sea. The wind grew stronger, and the waves smashed against the cliffs below. A storm rolled in suddenly, loud and heavy. Rain began to fall, and they rushed down the lighthouse stairs. The storm became fierce, with strong winds pushing against the doors and making the old structure tremble slightly. It wasn't safe to go outside, so they stayed inside the small room at the bottom of the lighthouse. They sat together, listening to the storm roar outside. The rain hit the windows like thousands of tiny pebbles. Thunder rumbled across the sky. Inside, the air felt charged with emotion. After a long silence, Adrian said quietly, "Elena, do you think there's still a place for me in your life?" She looked at him. His face was older now, his eyes deeper, filled with years of searching and learning. He wasn't the same young man who had left her behind. He was someone who finally understood the cost of his choices. "I don't know," she said honestly, "but I haven't forgotten you." Adrian closed his eyes and let out a soft breath, as if her words gave him a little hope. He reached into his bag and handed her a small black notebook. She opened it carefully and saw pages filled with handwriting. "What is this?" she asked.
"My journal," he said.
"Every important moment in my life I wrote about you. I dreamed you were there when I succeeded. I wished you were there when I failed." She read the first line. "Day 1 without her. I already miss her laugh." Her eyes filled with tears again. After the storm calmed, they walked back to town under a softer sky. When they reached her home, Elena turned to him and said, Would you like to see me again tomorrow? Adrian's eyes brightened with gentle surprise. Yes, he said simply. I would. In the days that followed, they met often, sometimes for coffee, sometimes for long walks by the sea, sometimes for quiet moments where they didn't need words. Their connection grew slowly, carefully, as if both of them understood the value of second chances. They talked about their past, their regrets, their hopes. Adrian helped her with photography ideas, and Elena showed him places in town he had forgotten. People in Willow Cove noticed them together and smiled knowingly. One evening, as they stood by the harbor watching the sunset, Adrian took her hand. His touch was warm and steady. Elena, he said softly, this time I'm not running.
I want to stay.
I want a life with you, not a memory. Elena felt something inside her soften completely. She could see the sincerity in his eyes, the years of growing, the love he still carried. She stepped closer and whispered, then stay. Their lips met gently in a soft, meaningful kiss, one filled with forgiveness and new beginnings. The world around them felt quiet, as if the sea itself was listening and blessing their moment. A month later, they revisited the lighthouse. The sky was clear, and the waves were calm. At the top, the golden light of the sunset wrapped around them. Adrian held her hands and said, "We lost many years, but I want the rest of mine to be with you." Elena felt tears in her eyes, but they were warm and full of hope. "I want to walk forward with you," she replied, slowly, honestly, with an open heart. He smiled, and they stood together in the fading light, knowing they had found something rare, a love that had survived time, mistakes, and distance. A love that came back because it was meant to. They did not rush. They built their days with care, with laughter, with gentle touches and honest conversations. Together, they discovered that sometimes life gives us a second chance, not to repeat the past, but to create something better. And from that day on, whenever Elena looked at the lighthouse on the hill, she felt grateful. It was no longer just a tall tower by the sea. It was the place where she and Adrian found each other again, where forgiveness healed old wounds, and where love began anew. Thank you for listening to this story. I hope it brings peace, warmth, and a bit of romance to your day. If you want more stories like this, feel free to join again next time. Have a wonderful day and see you soon. Don't forget to subscribe the channel.